everyone, and welcome. Some of the stories we have for you right now. A grim milestone as world leaders gather in Ukraine on the war's third anniversary.
We will continue to stand with Ukraine until the war is over and until Ukraine wins.
A pledge of support as global allies stand in solidarity.
You show up with Fred Flintstone French, it will be a problem.
Liberal showdown, top leadership contenders face off, and the first of two debates.
Seeing our provincial parks being renamed as state parks in Google, that is not okay.
Mapping the controversy over the state of provincial parks online.
I heard he had a style, and so I came.
Plus, remembering a legendary songstress, the life and legacy of Roberta Flack.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Vladimir Putin's pledge was to capture Kyiv in 3 days. Today, Canada's Prime Minister, along with other European leaders, are in Ukraine's capital to mark the third anniversary of Russia's invasion. President Zelensky is looking to shore up support in light of Donald Trump's savage attacks, support offered by Justin Trudeau and other leaders today. CTV's Adrian Gobriel is in Kyiv, and Adrian, take us through today's events, which also included a summit.
Sandy, leaders from across Europe descended on Kyiv today, and with Canada, the only representative from North America at the table to mark this dark anniversary, we heard Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announce his desire for the war to end this year.
I love Canada.
A proclamation of affection, though on day 1096 of Russia's invasion, pleasantries took a back seat to the deadly threat facing Ukraine, Europe, and democratic world order.
It's not just about Ukraine. It's about the rules and the values and the principles of sovereignty, of independence, of territorial integrity that protects every country in the world.
At the table, leaders from across Europe echoed a grave concern that their country may be next if Russia's show of force on Ukrainian soil is legitimized by Western democracies.
Ukraine is fighting the fight also for Europe and Nordics and Baltics, everybody. Also United States, because Iran, North Korea, everybody would assess that they can do whatever they want.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announcing that Canada will send $5 billion in aid to Ukraine using funds seized from Russian assets, as well as additional infantry and armored combat vehicles, while keeping the door open to possible Canadian troops on the ground in Ukraine as part of any future peace deal.
Everything is on the table because we need to make sure that might no longer makes right in this world.
Earlier in the day, American President Donald Trump joined a call with Zelensky, Trudeau, and other G7 leaders as fears mount that the new U.S. administration could pull their military support for Ukraine.
In the past 2 weeks, when we've seen a shift in the transatlantic partnership, we have to wake up to a new reality. And then the question is, how do we get skin in the game?
There were also multiple concerns about Ukraine possibly being forced into an unjust peace deal. Now, this all took place today under the constant threat of rockets and drone attacks from above. The building behind me was hit just a week ago. One man was killed. Among the injured, a 9-year-old girl. Sandy.
Okay, Adrian, thank you. Now, a critical moment, as Adrian said in his report, as Europe marks the third anniversary with a diplomatic counteroffensive underway, starting with France's President Macron meeting with Donald Trump at the White House today and urging Trump not to give in to the Russians.
The US and France always stands on the same side, the right side, I would say, of history.
Macron says some European countries may be willing to send troops to Ukraine, but in a limited role. Donald Trump claimed today that the Russian president is ready to accept European peacekeepers, potentially paving the way for a critical peace deal. On the separate issue of tariffs, Trump also said they are set to be implemented on time. Well, fresh off his party's election win, the leader of Germany's Conservatives is warning that Europe must seek to achieve independence from the United States. Friedrich Meyer's Christian Democratic Union and its sister party won nearly 29% of the vote. The election also saw Germany's far-right AfD party surge to second place with an historic 20.8%. Meyerz has criticized U.S. intervention in Germany's election campaign, but says he hopes to maintain a good relationship. Well, a prayer vigil for the Pope in Rome tonight as Francis spends an 11th night in hospital. The pontiff is still in critical condition as he undergoes treatment for double pneumonia and the early signs of kidney failure. CTV's Heather Wright is here now with a status report on the pontiff's health and well-being. Heather.
Well, Sandy, news from the Vatican today is slightly more upbeat than it was over the weekend. The Pope remains in critical condition, but insiders say he is eating normally and is in good humor. Outside of Rome's Gemelli Hospital, a group of faithful sing and pray, as inside Pope Francis battles double pneumonia and the onset of slight kidney failure. But in an update today, the Vatican says the pontiff's health is improving. The clinical conditions of the Holy Father, although critical, show a slight improvement, the statement reads. Even today, there were no episodes of asthmatic respiratory crises. Some laboratory tests have improved. Over the weekend, the Vatican said the Pope had experienced a respiratory crisis and was in critical condition. Last night was a good one, however, and the Pope resumed light work this afternoon with some of his secretaries.
His situation has improved since Saturday when he had that breathing crisis that required high-flow oxygen and blood transfusions.
Vatican analyst Gerard O'Connell says the health update released today was positive given what the Pope has been through, though he added setbacks are to be expected.
The pharmacological treatment they're giving him will take some time. And so nobody should expect an immediate evidence of Pope recovered. It takes time to remove pneumonia from anybody and also from the Pope.
Pope Francis is particularly susceptible to pneumonia and other lung infections as he underwent a partial lung removal as a young man and has been admitted to hospital multiple times since being elected Pope in 2013. Doctors have not provided a prognosis for the Pope, calling his situation complex. And while he continues to receive oxygen therapy, the flows have been reduced, which is another positive sign. Sandy.
All right, Heather, thank you. Activists gathered outside a courthouse in France today as the country faces its largest ever child sex abuse trial. A former surgeon is accused of sexually abusing and raping nearly 300 victims over several decades, many of them young patients under anesthesia. A Sharia court in Indonesia has sentenced 2 men to receiving as many as 85 lashes for having gay sex. The young couple was arrested in November after neighborhood vigilantes broke into their rented room. And Israel is extending military operations in the West Bank, sending in tanks for the first time in 20 years. The IDF has steadily increased its presence in the occupied territory over what it calls escalating militancy in the Palestinian enclave. In this country, the first of 2 high-stakes Liberal leadership debates kicks off tonight in Montreal. The 4 candidates will square off in French first and in English tomorrow night. The 2 frontrunners, Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney, also released new ads. Perfect time for us to bring in CTV's Mike LeCouture, who's at the studio where the debates will happen. All right, Mike, set us up for what we might expect to see tonight.
Yeah, Sandy, I think you'll see a lot of these candidates agreeing with each other in terms of where this party needs to go, and certainly not where it is right now. But also the question will be, where do they want to bring the party at this moment? I think it'll also be interesting to see how they will speak French. Of course, we know there is only one candidate in this race right now who is a Quebecer. That's Frank Baylis. The other 3, French is not their most comfortable language, one could say. So it'll be interesting to see how that debate will actually actually go, but it's really going to be a sort of coming out party for all of them. And this is where all of the campaigns have said they want Canadians and Liberals first to get to know Chrystia Freeland, Karina Gould, Mark Carney, and to a more of an extent there, Frank Baylis. And they really want people to know the person behind the politician as well, but also talk about where they want to go with this party, how they believe that they are the best person, not only to face off against Pierre Poilievre, but also against Donald Trump, because we know that is one of the key things here.
Right. A quick answer to this one, Mike. I know that we're going to see a more personal approach in those ads that were released today. Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney are taking. So tell us more about those.
Yeah, it's interesting because Mark Carney's was narrated by his daughter Cleo, and of course it really talked about who he is as a person. Same thing with Chrystia Freeland. She released an ad as well talking about how she was a farm girl and how farmers are the people that really make this country go round. And I think that is what they're going to try and do today as they try and introduce Canadians to who they are as people beyond the politician.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Well, as the Liberals pick their new leader, the other parties are nervously watching the polls. Both the Conservatives and the NDP are losing ground to the Liberals ever since Donald Trump's tariff threats became issue number one. CTV's Judy Trinh now on how Jagmeet Singh is trying to reframe the political conversation. Judy.
Sandy, the NDP is falling further behind the Liberals and the Conservatives, according to polls. Jagmeet Singh is trying to reverse that by talking about new health policy, but he faces a steep climb.
Public dental care.
In a room full of healthcare workers, Jagmeet Singh is trying to reframe President Donald Trump's threat of annexation.
He wants to replace our Canadian healthcare system with an American healthcare system. Well, to that we say, hell no. We don't want that.
Singh says the NDP will close loopholes to prevent corporations from directly billing patients for health services.
They've let Daniel Smith, who's on the verge of basically selling off all the public hospitals to let them be run by a private corporation. We have Doug Spord that's been privatizing healthcare. So clearly the Liberals can't stand up to the idea of a 51st state when it comes to healthcare.
But this pollster says that strategy isn't going to help.
Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats are just getting squeezed.
Since the Prime Minister's visit to Mar-a-Lago in November, Trump has repeatedly threatened to take over Canada.
They get 95% of their product from the United States. I think they have to become the 51st state.
And today, he continued to call Justin Trudeau governor in a post about the G7 and Ukraine. Since Trudeau stepped down and triggered a leadership race, there has been a dramatic shift in the polls. The Liberals are closing the massive double-digit Conservative lead and taking support from the New Democrats.
Canadians will be making choices in the next federal election, not based on the leader they might like, not based on the party they might like, but based on who they think might be best positioned to deal with Donald Trump.
A new Liberal leader will be selected in less than 2 weeks. If a snap election is called, Singh says the NDP will be ready. Sandy.
Okay, Judy, thank you. Now, Ontario's provincial election is in the home stretch with advanced polling underway ahead of Thursday's vote day. And today, the ruling Conservatives finally released their platform. CTV's Siobhan Morris now on what the leaders are up to with 3 days to go.
Very, very close. This is the final push, the final sprint to that Thursday finish line. And as of today, all four major party leaders have their full platforms out. Bonnie Crombie, the Liberal leader, started her day in Ottawa. NDP leader Marit Stiles later this afternoon will be in Sarnia, Windsor, and London. Earlier, we saw Green leader Mike Schreiner campaigning in Parry Sound, Muskoka. That's a riding the Greens are hoping to steal away from Progressive Conservatives, a riding where they came in second in the last election. And now today, we saw the full platform from Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford. It includes $40 billion worth of investments pledged over the campaign, some brand new things, including $5 billion for a Protect Ontario account to respond to tariffs, $705 million more to improve STEM and skilled trades training at post-secondary institutions. Here's more of what we heard from Ford and Schreiner today.
Our plan will protect Ontario. Ontario will improve the care and services you depend on, no matter what President Trump throws our way, because of the foundation of a strong healthcare system, a strong education system, a strong social services system, is a strong economy. That is our foundation.
It's so heartening today to have endorsements from people
who traditionally have supported other parties, who in this election are getting behind Matt because they know he will be a strong, independent voice for Perry Salmuskoka, putting people before party and politics.
One of the new promises from the PCs, the headline grabber really, is that Ford wants to do away with the minimum price we charge for alcohol in Ontario. That's similar to the buck a beer pledge he made back in 2018, something that very few breweries actually picked up on. We did get some numbers this morning from Elections Ontario about advanced polling dates over the weekend. Only about 6% of the electorate eligible to vote did. We are seeing again in this election far fewer dates than in previous elections.
Siobhan Morris, CTV News, Toronto.
All right, coming up after the break, navigating a map of online controversy.
I am on edge. I don't want to be part of the United States.
Why provincial parks are showing up as state parks on Google. A shocking incident in Halifax where a 6-year-old boy was stabbed on Sunday. Today, a 19-year-old was charged with attempted murder.
How shocking is this? Oh, it's very, very tragic. It's a very, very tragic incident.
The boy was found with stab wounds yesterday on a downtown street and remains in hospital with life-threatening injuries. A woman was identified as a suspect and arrested. She and the child are believed to be strangers. Now, Google Maps has already renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, and now many Canadians are noticing the search engine is incorrectly listing some provincial parks as state parks. CTV's Kathy Lee looked into this. All right, Kathy, what's going on?
Sandy, the internet is buzzing over this and many people aren't happy. Some saying this move is an attack on their Canadian identity. Not all Canadian provincial parks have been labeled as state parks on Google Maps, but a handful of them are, including Peter Lougheed Provincial Park and Elbow Sheep Wildland Provincial Park in Alberta, Darlington Provincial Park in Ontario, and Mount Robson Provincial Park in BC, just to name a few. Canadian Google Maps users are reporting errors to the tech giant, marking the parks as having incorrect designations and suggesting edits to the category.
Seeing our provincial parks being renamed as state parks in Google, that is not okay to me. I feel personally for myself as a citizen, I am on edge. I don't want to be part of the United States. I am a Canadian.
One expert says President Trump's threat to make Canada the 51st state is doing a lot of damage to U.S.-Canada relations, but it's also increased nationalism in this country.
It's diminishing Canadians in Canada. And so Canadians are rightly offended by it. It's creating a real strong sense of unity. And it is creating the sensitivity that anything that might have existed in the past that Canadians really didn't take very seriously, they now feel more offended by.
In a statement, Google says it hasn't made any recent changes to the way it labels parks in Canada, but it's actively working to update those labels to avoid confusion. Sandy.
All right, Kathy, thank you for this. Still ahead after the break, a strain on the healthcare system. The impact of a troubling dip in patients getting flu shots. Blame the flu if you've been sick lately, but also blame the fact that vaccinations are down in a flu season just hitting its peak. CTV's Andrew Johnson is here. And Andrew, it looks like a bad season can be attributed to lower vaccine rates, right?
That is the word from experts, Sandy. Our healthcare system is already under tremendous strain, and doctors say some of the people getting really sick with the flu right now could have avoided it. The latest data from Canadian health officials shows the percentage of positive influenza tests right now is the highest recorded in 5 years. The most flu activity is being seen in parts of BC, Alberta, Ontario, and Quebec. More flu means more people are feeling sick enough to visit their doctor or head to the emergency room.
We are seeing a lot in the hospital. It is the time in the season that we would expect to see a lot of influenza, and the tests are positive, and I think mixed with a fewer number of people who've actually got the vaccine this year. I think that's why we're seeing a lot of worse disease.
Doctors are reporting anecdotally they're seeing fewer people this year who have been immunized against the flu.
You know, in 2025, we've had 5 years of vaccine for a variety of reasons, whether it's COVID or RSV or influenza. And I think people are a little bit tired of it. But of course, the disappointing thing is that despite us being tired of it, doesn't mean that the virus is going to give us a break.
He's also reminding us what worked during the pandemic in terms of keeping people around us safe. If you're sick, stay away from others. And if you can't do that, consider wearing a mask.
Okay.
Sandy.
Andrew, thank you. Canadian singer Justin Bieber found himself facing off against an NHL great yesterday. Bieber playfully dropped the gloves against Jeremy Roenick in a star-studded charity game hosted by the LA Kings. It was all part of Skate for LA Strong, which brought together former hockey players and celebrities to help those affected by the January fires. After the break, remembering the timeless voice of a generation.
Tonight, I celebrate my love for you. It seems the natural thing to do. Tonight, no one's gonna find us. We'll leave the world behind us.
Roberta Flack was one of the defining voices of her generation, famous for romantic ballads like The First Time I Saw Your Face and Killing Me Softly with his song. The 88-year-old died today after years of health issues. CTV's John Vinavalli-Rao reports.
Strumming my pain with his finger.
Roberta Flack once said it was a song she instantly knew was magic.
Killing me softly with his song.
A soulful voice that was part of the soundtrack of the 70s.
I feel like making love.
An artist who was also a trailblazer in Grammy history.
In fact, she was the first person and the first artist to win back-to-back Grammy Awards for Record of the Year.
Won't sleep.
Born in North Carolina, Flack played her first piano at age 9 and went on to attend Howard, a historically black university, on a music scholarship at age 15. Initially, her goal was to be a concert pianist, but turned to singing. She released her debut album in 1969, but struggled to get attention.
Ever I saw your face.
Until Clint Eastwood asked to use one of her songs in a movie. It pushed the song to #1 on the Billboard chart.
Killing me softly.
Then came that other big hit. That song landed in the Rolling Stones' top 500 songs of all time, inspiring musicians like Alicia Keys and the Fugees to years later reimagine it. Flack recorded 20 studio albums, was nominated for 14 Grammys.
Tonight, I celebrate my love.
And had a number of memorable duets. She also championed music education. 3 years ago, she announced she had ALS and could no longer sing. In a statement, her publicist wrote, she died peacefully, surrounded by her family.
Strumming my pain.
An artist whose voice and songs will endure. John Vinavalli-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
We'll be listening to her music this evening. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Your local CTV News is coming up. Omar is here later. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow, we hope. Bye for now.